the Supreme Court passed a judgment asking various state governments to evict forest dwellers whose claims had been rejected under the Forest Rights Act of 2006. This decision of the Supreme Court is expected to affect a number of scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers. These tribes, which have resided in forest areas for centuries together, they are facing a possibility of eviction because their claims for forest dwelling under the Forest Rights Act has been rejected and the Supreme Court has ordered their eviction. So for details about the Forest Rights Act and the impact of the Supreme Court judgment, please refer yesterday's analysis because we have covered these topics in great detail. Today, let's talk about the Dongriya Kond tribe and the Niyamgiri hill range, which can be very important for your prelims. The Dongriya Kond are a native indigenous tribe present in the Niyamgiri hills of Odisha. It is located in the Kalahandi and Rayagada district of Odisha, and the hill range is bound by the Karlapat Wildlife Sanctuary in the northwest, and it is bound by the Kotgar Wildlife Sanctuary in the northeast. So essentially, the Niyamgiri hills is densely forested. It is very rich in biodiversity. There are a number of streams which are present in the region, and the native indigenous community is the Dongriya Kond tribe. The Niyamgiri hills is very rich in bauxite resources, and a few years back, Sterlite Industries, which is a part of the Vedanta group, had obtained the required forest and environmental clearances to mine the bauxite resources present in the Niyamgiri hills. The Vedanta group was supported by the government of India and as well as by the government of Odisha to mine the bauxite resources. The required environmental clearances and wildlife clearances were obtained, and if this project had gone ahead, the Dongriya Kond would have possibly been evicted from the region and their traditional rights could have been compromised. So this indigenous tribe rose to prominence due to its fight against the Vedanta group. The indigenous community set up a popular opposition against the Vedanta group, which had the support of the central and the state government. The case finally reached the Supreme Court, and in 2013, the Supreme Court ordered the state government to carry out local consultation as per the provisions of the Forest Rights Act of 2006. Based on this judgment of the Supreme Court, local consultation was carried out with the local village councils, which is the equivalent of the Gram Sabha, and these councils rejected the project of Vedanta group to mine bauxite resources in the Niyamgiri hills, and it marked a huge victory for the indigenous tribe. But today, unfortunately, another Supreme Court judgment might result in the eviction of this native indigenous tribe because under the Forest Rights Act, the Dongriya Kond have managed to get land titles for the forest areas, but they have not been able to win habitation rights or forest dwelling rights as per the provisions of the Forest Rights Act. So due to this recent judgment of the Supreme Court, which might result in the possible eviction of the Dongriya Konds, the community has taken a resolution to fight against the possible eviction, and hence the tribe itself can become very important for prelims. So now let's look at a few basic facts about the Dongriya Kond, which can be a potential prelims question. Please remember that the tribe practices shifting cultivation, and they mainly rely on collection of minor forest produce, and they also take up cattle grazing and horticulture, which provides for a basic subsistence living. And they speak the Kui language, which does not have any script. It is not a written language. It is just spoken amongst the members of the tribe. And they worship the Niyam Raja, and the Niyam Raja festival, which is currently going on, is a very popular cultural event amongst the Dongriya Kond tribe. And this indigenous tribe was supported by a global human rights organization known as Survival International in its fight against the Vedanta group. Survival International is a non-governmental organization which works in the field of human rights. It was set up in 1969 and it is headquartered in London. This NGO represents the rights of indigenous people which are fighting against any possible attempts by the government and by the industry to snatch away their traditional rights. Now let's take up the next article. India's External Affairs Minister has been invited to address